So I'd like to welcome everybody to another in our series of teaching online webinars. My name is Sam Anneman in the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I will be your host today. So a few housekeeping items. I'm just going to say goodbye now. You've had a little bit. You can see that I'm a real person. I'm much more of a behind the camera kind of guy, so I'm going to turn my camera off and proceed. So as I said, just a few housekeeping items here. If you have any sound problems, look for an audio button or an audio link in your interface and check your audio that way. If you have any issues, technical issues with WebEx, please call WebEx support. That number is 866-229-3239, and if you need to leave the session temporarily in the emoticon menu, just click on, if you would, click on the coffee cup icon to let us know that you've temporarily stepped away from your computer. And again, some guidelines at any point during the session. Feel free to raise your hand to ask questions if you want to use your microphone. And at any time you want to type in any comments or questions in the chat, please do. I will be monitoring the chat and will ask those questions of our speaker. We are recording this session, and I will send you a session recording link at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So I would like to, before I introduce our speaker, Beth, could I get everyone to just type into the chat what department you're in and where you're logging on from today? Thank you all. So we got the University Writing Program over in your office, Kat. Jim is in Kennedy. Carrie is in Biological Sciences, and she's at home. Oh, we're sorry to hear you're sick. Kristen is American Studies, also from home. Well, I wish, on behalf of everyone who's here on campus, I bet we all wish we could be at home right now. So I would like to now introduce our session leader, Beth Oyarzen. Beth is just started with us full-time in the Educational Leadership Department in the College of Education. But she has a lot of teaching experience. She's been teaching online for more than 10 years, and she was an online student for more than 5 years. And her research is a lot about the effective instructional strategies for online learning. So everybody, please, let's welcome Beth.
Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me okay? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I got one, yes.
Yes, you're
okay,
fine, and I have given you presenter control.
Okay. I'm just going to then share my screen. So your screen will change just a little bit because I'm going to share my desktop. Is everybody seeing my PowerPoint slide hopefully now? Okay. And thank you, Sam, for that lovely introduction. Yes, my name is Beth Oyarzen, and I'm a clinical assistant professor of instructional systems technology in the Educational Leadership Department. And a few of you around campus, University Writing, ITS, American Studies, and Biological Sciences, it says. So I'm hoping to gear this training towards your interest. So as we get into some of the examples, I may ask you to provide examples from your area because I'm not necessarily an expert in biological sciences or American Studies, but I was going to share some research-based assessment practices and assessment practices that I've used in my own courses, also assessment practices that I've experienced as a student. So there's a mixture of different sources that this information comes from. But at the end, I will also provide some additional resources that I used in further reading in case you're interested in delving into this topic a little bit deeper. Please feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions. You can type in the chat. I think Sam is monitoring, hopefully, or you can use your microphone and ask questions at any time. Okay. We'll get started. So first of all, for assessments, effective assessments are usually based off the learning outcomes or objectives of the course. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, whether it's an online or a face-to-face course, is what do you want the students to be able to do when the instruction is complete? And this is a picture of Bloom's taxonomy that is often used to write those learning outcomes to make sure they're measurable. And you can see at each level, the bottom level is the lowest level of remember, which is recalling facts, all the way up to create, which is the highest level where you're constructing or developing or formulating papers or products. The reason you want to think about this first is to design your assessments to match what the level of the course is and what you want them to do when the either module or their course is complete. So then I like to think about when I'm designing a course. From there, once I really decide what I want them to be able to do, I then look into low stakes versus high stakes assessments or lower level versus high level assessments. So on the lower level, you'll see on the left is remember, understand, apply, or the lower level of that triangle, the lower three levels. And those types of assessments that you can use are quizzes, tests, assignments, discussions, journals, surveys. So these are smaller assessments that don't take a lot of time and thought. It's more of like a checkpoint to make sure that they have gained the content from a module or a reading. And then you have the higher level assessments on the right, which are the higher level of the triangle, which is analyze, evaluate, and create, which these are bigger assessments or projects, which are exams, projects, papers, presentations. And the wheel here in the middle is a little overwhelming probably, but let me see if I can explain it for you. In the very center of this wheel, you see the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And then you can see as you move out within that level what kind of verbs could be used to write the outcome or objective, and then what kind of products might be produced from that level of Bloom's taxonomy. So these are just to gather ideas. And when you're thinking about assessments for your class, you really want to make sure you have a variety, especially for online, which brings me to my next slide. So for online assessment best practices, and this comes from research articles that you'll see at the end, and I'm going to talk briefly about and give examples from each of these bullet points. A variety of assessments is advised just for maintaining engagement for the course. So if an online course, for example, is designed where every single module you have a discussion and a quiz and an assignment, and then the next module is a discussion, a quiz, and an assignment, towards the end, students might, get bored with that same thing happening each assignment. So it is advised to vary them. So maybe you have a discussion this week, you might have an assignment next week, you might have a project that's a group project that spans several modules with some quizzes in the modules to make sure that they are gathering the reading they need to produce the project. So a variety of different assessments. Assessing often. Online is different than face-to-face, and so the traditional giving an exam in the middle of the course and an exam at the end of the course, or having large projects submitted at the end of the course is not necessarily advisable. You need to have checkpoints to make sure that they are following along with the instruction in the course. If it's a large project for the class, a lot of research, and I've experienced this as well, breaking that up into pieces can be helpful, like a project part 1, project part 2, project part 3, and then have them submit the entire full project at the end of the course, but they have some graded pieces along the way to make sure that they're staying on track. Timely and quality feedback is very important, which can also be time-consuming and online, which I'm going to go over some strategies for that in a moment. And allowing for student choice when appropriate. And this and authentic assessments kind of rolls in together. Cheating is a big topic for online learning. Cheating is a lot easier to do when teaching online. Copy and paste, or just in general in today's 21st century society, cheating is easier plagiarism. And so it's encouraged, especially for online learning, to create authentic assessments that they may not be able to necessarily find the answers for or a paper for online. For example, and this is an example of student choice as well, if a traditional assessment might be detail the major happenings of the Lincoln presidency, you know, an authentic assessment that would be similar to that and say, take the Lincoln presidency and a modern day president and compare their major accomplishments. So that might not be as easy to find information on. It may be more unique and authentic. So they have to then analyze those major events, but then compare them in some way that might be unique. And it also gives them a little bit of a choice that can help increase motivation so they can choose something about that topic. It can also help you with grading because you're getting different types of products that instead of the same product over and over again. So that can be more interesting for your grading as well. Does anybody have an example or a thought about any of these best practices and how you might be able to apply them in your setting? Thanks, Kat. She said that's much better than policing. Yes,
and I was going to add one of the strategies I use that kind of goes along with that, and that is to assign 2 readings. They could be short even, and you have students, you know, build connections between them, or use one to analyze the other through the lens or something like that. So, yeah, I think that's a much better way to do it than trying to send everything through Turnitin.
Yes. Well, and you could still use Turnitin as a plagiarism checker, but then, yeah, the task itself is a little more authentic. And then, you know, having quizzes, like I use quizzes in my class for assessments, and what's nice about quizzing is that they can be self-checking, so it's a low-stakes assessment that I don't have to necessarily spend my time grading, but it also gives them immediate feedback. And it ensures that they're following along with the reading. And even with my quizzes, I allow them to take it 2 or 3 times because for me, it's not necessarily about the grade that they get on the quiz. It's about did they read the content. So if they have to take the quiz a couple times, it's still successful in my eyes because it has them reading. Variscite is the new assessment tool. Who said that? Let's see. Sam. Says, for the record, our new plagiarism tool is Variscite. And to use Variscite, though, you have to have the student sign off permission slips, I think, or permission forms. And Kat says she really wants to understand how to use quizzes better. And I'm going to demo some of the quiz features in Canvas as we get a little further along in the slides too, and surveys as well. Because using a survey, an ungraded or a graded survey can be helpful in getting feedback from the students about how the course is going. So not only do you want to provide them quality and timely feedback, but you want to get feedback from them on how the course is going, and that can help you decide how to edit the course for the following time you deliver it, or even as the course is ongoing. And Jim says, how do you make online quiz have all the possible right answers? I'm not sure I understand the question. How do you mark the answers, which answers are correct? Is that the question?
Jim, you can certainly ask your question via your mic if you want.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly before. There are ways to make sure the quizzes are marked with the correct answers, and I'll show you that when we get to the Canvas demo in a moment. Oh, he's muted and can't unmute himself. Sam, can you unmute him? Or can I?
Okay, you're unmuted now, Jim.
Okay. My online classes, I have quizzes that I leave out there for the students. And, you know, the question will be something like, what is one tool or technique for scheduling? And it could be capitalized. It might not be capitalized. The students might misspell it. Sometimes it's 2 words and they'll hyphenate it. Sometimes it's a word like replan. Some people hyphenate, some people don't. And I've had a real frustration trying to put as many right answers out there to a question as I can. And maybe my problem is I'm asking them to do fill in the blank, but I felt like forcing them to think about an answer rather than just giving a multiple choice was a better learning instrument. So I'd like some feedback on all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, and using the short answer is definitely the issue there, and having, I think, and I'm not as well versed, and Sam may have to jump in on this one. I think you can have it, or at least in other elements that I looked at, you can have it ignore whether it's capitalized or not, and then putting the list of possible correct answers, like you said, you're already doing that. The other option is to put it in as an essay instead of a short answer, but then you would have to go in and manually look at it and grade it. It wouldn't grade itself. But then you could give it credit if it's correct, no matter how they wrote it, whether it was hyphen or not. Sam, do you have any insight there?
Well, yes, I was going to say that I believe that you can ignore case, number one, but I think that really it's so hard to know what all the possibilities are that I think what Beth was getting at is to make it an essay type question. You'll have to go in and grade it though, because you know there's no way to predict what all the possible right answers might be.
Right, and the other option would be to make it multiple choice, which it sounds like you're wanting them to think a little bit more thoroughly instead of just choosing an answer. So I don't know that that would be the route you would want to take. Yeah, and allowing them to take it multiple times is helpful. And I have in my undergraduate course a short quiz every module that they take multiple times, and I do have some short answer questions in there that I grade automatically. And it pulls a random amount of questions for those quizzes, and so there may be 1 or 2 short answer per student that I have to go in and grade. It's not a whole lot, but I still do it that way. And I leave those in there for the same reason you do, Jim, is to make sure that they are having, it's not all just multiple choice, but they have to actually type in some answers and think through it a little bit further. But it is a little less, but I only have to do a couple per student. You're welcome. Any other questions at this stage? Okay. With this being said, the workload and time management issue for online, you know, this is talked about a lot, that online takes so much more time, and it's so, you know, especially if you have a discussion every week, an assignment every week that you have to grade, and then you have to, you know, interact with all those discussions, answer emails, that it gets much more time intensive. And that can be true, but think about it. If you're designing the course, you can sort of set this up and decide where you want your workload or time to be spent. And this is where some of the other low-stakes assessment can be nice, whether you're using a self-created quiz or a survey that is giving them feedback, which I'm going to show you when we get to the Canvas in a minute. You can have group assessments or assignments. And this is where you could have, if it's a large class especially, you could have them do an assignment in groups that has its own host of different issues that faculty run into, whether, you know, groups aren't pulling their weight or this or that. And there's all kinds of strategies to improve that as well. But what's nice about doing group assignments, especially if you set them up in Canvas, is that when you input a grade for that group, it distributes to all the other group members. So if you had a class of 30 students and you put them in groups of 4, then you'd only have to grade, you know, so many assignments and it would be done. So that could help your workload. You could also have peer assessments. That's also ability to set that up in Canvas. This is where they could grade each other via a rubric that you could, Carrie says, group projects. And it's suggestions for motivating group members. Thank you, Carrie. And yes, students and faculty complain, I think, a lot about group assignments. And honestly, I think it's the way that they are designed. You have to design them very, very well with a structure. And if you look at cooperative learning and collaborative learning research, you'll see some of these suggestions where they have each group member understands their role in the group. They get to evaluate each other's performance in the group. There's individual accountability, which means they have to submit something individually. And there's group accountability, which means they have to submit something as a group. So that means that it's not just, here's a group assignment, submit it, and the group gets a grade. There's some other pieces that need to be involved there. Yeah. And peer assessment's great. You can have the rubric. So they're all submitting something individually. That may not help with your workload or time management, but it could help with the products. So if you have an assessment, everybody submits that same assessment, but then they peer evaluate each other with the rubric, get feedback before they submit it to the instructor. So that can help too. You'll get better products maybe that way, but it may not help with the time management issue of having, you know, less things to grade. Rubrics, particularly in Canvas, are amazing. I'm going to demo that in a minute. You can save comments that you've typed in a rubric before and then reuse them later, and they'll copy from course to course. So this can be a nice time saver for, especially if you end up making a lot of the same comments each semester. And I'll show you that in a second. And then there's whole class and group feedback. And then I like to do this particularly with discussion boards. So instead of going into a discussion board and replying to each student, I will, you know, monitor the discussion throughout, comment as needed, and then at the end of it, send a whole class announcement or email. Maybe point out some things that students have said that were interesting or some controversy about the discussion, and sort of give us a whole class summary. You could do that with papers too. You know, if you finished grading a set of papers or assignments, you can, in the weekly announcement, say, you know, finished grading these, you did a particularly good job on this, as a class you need to work on this, etc. So you could do that same thing with groups. And yes, Carrie's in my class right now, which I wasn't going to call you out for that, but since you did it yourself, she did it. And I do that with the assignment. And I have students in my upper level courses, which is in the graduate class. I'll have them facilitate the discussion because they're learning to be online teachers and trainers. So I'm hoping that they learn that facilitation skill. So I actually have them do it, which helps my workload and time as well, if I have them create the prompt and monitor the discussions as well. Any other examples or thoughts about any of these workload and time management tips and tricks or examples? Jim says, I hold the group accountable with a single grade. I teach risk and the group project is risky. The group must agree on submittals. If someone drops the ball, the group allowed that, and that's true too. Also rotate the leadership and followership. That's a tough word to say. Each week is a group assignment, so each week somebody might take a leadership role, right? So that's sort of giving them a role, and I think giving somebody accountability as a leader helps with that as well. I've done a group assignment where I have individual submissions, but I assign a group support, if that makes any sense. It's sort of like peer evaluation, but each member of the group, it might be a 4-person team, has some different support role, like the leaders, as Jim mentioned, but there's also the rubric expert, so this person checks everybody for the rubric. The other person is the time management, keeps everybody on track, make sure that they are getting their assignment done on time. So those kinds of roles within groups can help if you define it. I worked with a business instructor one time who was designing a course, and she was complaining about group assignments. Oh my gosh, I have this group and they're doing terrible. And I was like, well, it's a business course. It would make sense for your content if they had some roles that they would have in the business. So she had them, you know, there was a manager. The manager could fire people out of their group. And then she had some other roles with them. And then if you got fired out of the group, then you had to interview and join another group. Yeah, you're fired. So she set up this whole like little elaborate business model. And she was like, this is amazing. Why did I ever think of this? And she had the best time, and the groups went so well. She's like, nobody got fired. So that was good. But they were excited that they had the power to do it. And they held it over people to get the jobs done. So it was interesting. If you can make it work, make sense with your content, and design it well, I think group assignments can go well. I think a lot of times it's just not as defined as it should be, especially for online. Because online, you know, the devil's in the details with online, and so having that kind of detail set forth and structure for them can really help. That's good, Carrie. I'm glad to hear that, because we're going to have some. So now I want to transition into Canvas to show you some of these features that I'm talking about. First of all, and this is just a test course that was set up by Sam for us to play with, and I wanted to go in and look. And if you want me to demo anything, anytime, just stop and tell me. I'm just going to sort of go through my list. If there's anything else you want to see, let me know. Let's see, what did I have first? Feedback. So if you have an assignment, and I've done this for one of them because I was afraid I wouldn't have access to the grades, but let's just say you have one of those papers, and as an instructor, we all know kind of what that means, but this is something I submitted for a QM course I was taking. That it's going to take you, you know, about an hour to write what you really want to write about the feedback on the paper. It's not done as well as you would like, or assignment, whatever it may be. There's a nice feature in the feedback that you can create a video. And if you click on this little play button, it's media comment, you can create a video and talk to the student instead of typing out all of that feedback. I only use this when I have a lot of feedback to give on a particular assignment. But you can see I've done one here, and it just pops up, and you can talk to them.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to hear the audio in the screen sharing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But you could sort of see that it's me talking to the student, and you could do that instead of typing up all the feedback, and that might be helpful for that time management issue. Another thing you can do is this speech recognition button. And I don't know if this will work with my camera on, but this is nice too. It'll take what you're saying and type it into the box. So let's see if this will work. You just click record. testing 1, 2, 3, and then you could submit a comment.
So I would just pop in and say that speech recognition is only available in Google Chrome.
Oh, okay, only in Google Chrome. Well, that's all I use. No wonder I love it.
Right. So it's good. Yeah, my experience has been you just have to talk maybe just a little bit more slowly than you normally do, but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it is pretty accurate, and I've noticed it's really not bad. And I don't even have my headset with my mic. This is my webcam mic that I'm using. So I think it is. And I did the one right before that earlier today, the please try to improve your APA. I did that the same way by voicing it into the type, which can be a nice time saver. Any questions there? So these are just ways to personalize the feedback and make it a little more robust and save you some time on the end as well. Let's see, what did I have next that I was going to do? Rubrics. Okay, I mentioned to you before that rubrics save comments. So in order to do that, you have to create an assignment first and then add a rubric to it. So I've created this test assignment, and you just do that by add assignment. And once it's created and published, you can add a rubric to it, which I have done here. And you can see you can edit this rubric, and I just called it test assignment. I added a couple of criteria. You could add more. I'm just going to call it more criteria. And I usually like to write the free form comments, but you could, put detailed ratings in here as to what 0 points and 2 points would be. But I just usually use it, and I type in the box for each one and use this rubric for grading. Okay. So then from a student perspective, which I have our little student in another browser over here. Hang on. But I can't move them over. Uh-oh, did I freeze? Hello?
Yeah, can you find it just by in your taskbar? Can you click on the other browser down at the bottom there in your taskbar?
Oh, yeah, maybe. It's on my other screen and it won't let me drag it over. Anyway, let me see if I can go into the settings as a student from here. If you don't know how to do this, this is very helpful too. If you go into settings and then student view, this will show you the student view from your test student that's in your gradebook. So let's submit something. I think I already submitted something to this, but I'm going to resubmit it. I don't know what that is, but we'll try it. And then if you look under grades here, you can see what that feedback looked like. And see, there's all that feedback that I had. I could just play this video here. And the student can also give you a video back the same way that I did that video there, if you wanted them to. So if I go to grades, I was trying to show you the rubric. Hang on. So here's my test student. And I'm going to go into the SpeedGrader and see it has the View Rubric button here. So if I click on that View Rubric button, I can, like I said, use the free form comment and see it here. It says Save for Reuse. So if I type a comment here, which you can't do the audio comments, but you type a comment here, I can then save it for reuse later. And what happens is when I go back into this rubric, I get a drop-down menu of all the comments that I've saved for reuse. And that travels when you go from course to course. So all the comments that I made last semester will show up in this drop-down menu for this semester, and I can select them just to personalize them, which is helpful over time. You build a whole bank of comments. But to do this, you have to add the rubric. Course to course, yep. Yes, it does, which is really nice. Your comments didn't carry over from last semester to this semester. Did you copy the course or copy the course content?
Yes, my rubrics are all there, but for every assignment, even though I'm using the same rubric over and over again, my comments are not carrying over. I have to start all over. What am I doing?
Do you click that save comment for reuse thing?
I do, yes. And so I'll get those as I'm finishing up that one assignment. So I can reuse that one assignment. But when I go to the next assignment, even though the comments are there, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe I need to Google that or something.
Well, are you using the same rubric for multiple assignments in the same course?
Yes.
I wonder if that's why, because I use a different rubric for every assignment and then copy it to the new course. I wonder if that's the difference.
Might be. I'll try.
I don't know. Just a thought. Let's see, what was the next thing I was going to show? Surveys. I use surveys a lot, particularly with undergrad students, to be transparent or to get feedback from the students in addition to showing them information. So, for example, I just have a small survey that I created here. You create them under quizzes. You just create a quiz, and then you have an option to make it a graded quiz or a graded or ungraded survey. And I usually make these as ungraded surveys, and you get all the options that you would get for a quiz under an ungraded survey. So I made one here. And I just put 2 questions as samples of types of questions I might put in a survey for my course. It was like, what connections did you make in this week's reading to your profession? Or did this week's activities have an impact on you professionally or personally? One of these is you could do participation points for a graded survey. So it could show up in the grade book, and you could assign 1 or 2 participation points or 5 or how many ever. So it doesn't necessarily grade each question, but it comes out as participation points. So if they complete it, they get the points. Does that make sense? So one of these questions here is a multiple choice question, and one is an essay question. And so as a student, if I go in and fill that out, the instructor can get a report of how these questions were answered, both short answer and multiple choice, and you could give that information back to the students and say, look, the 50 to 75% of the class had an impact from this week's reading on them personally or professionally, depending on how you set up those answers. And this is what they said about that, and these are some interesting comments. So it can give just a snapshot of what's going on in the course and make it personalized for the people in that course right now. In my 5100, it's not my highest level course, but it is a grad course. I have one of these in each module that sort of serves as a self-checklist for the student. Did I do everything that I needed to do this week? And then a couple of reflection items. And I will get the report from the questions, and nobody's filled this one out. But I will go in and get the report, and I'll take a snapshot of it, and I'll send it in my weekly announcement and say, this is what you thought about this week, and this is how it's impacted the class. Now we're moving forward to this topic. So let's think about how it might impact you in this way. So it's a good way to be transparent and make it personalized to just a semester of students. Quizzes, we talked about that, multiple attempts, randomized questions, and using the timer. Helpful. I don't know that we need to demo that. But then there's also groups, and groups comes in under people. So if you go to people, and then there's add group set. And this will create a group set for students. You can either do it manually or you could have it do it randomly. And you can see here it's created the two test groups of students. What that does for them is they'll have a groups tab then over on the left, and I really wish I could move my, oh, here it comes. I had to just minimize it. So this is what it looks like on the student side. So they get a groups tab, so they can have access to all of their groups over here, which is running really slow, like you said. But it's basically like a mini course. They get a discussion board, an assignment. They can add their own assignments. They can see who's in their group. It's just a private, smaller course for them. But then, like I said, you can also make assignments to groups themselves. So if you look at this group assignment that I created, if you edit it, you can see here, you can make it a group assignment, and once you have a group set created, you can assign it to those groups. And that's how, in the Grade Center, you can assign just one grade to multiple groups of students. You can also do the peer review that we discussed earlier here, where you can automatically assign out reviews per student in a certain assignment. And you can make those reviews anonymous where they get feedback from others in the class. So that can be worked through in assignments. Anything else you wanted to, oh, presentations. You could do presentations as well instead of just papers and online. There's lots of tools, but inside Canvas there's something called Kaltura where they could do a multimedia assignment. Under a set edit assignment, you can see that by the types of files, you can have them submit a media recording, and that could be some sort of presentation. And there's the Variscite that we mentioned earlier to have them check for plagiarism, which won't work on a media recording, by the way. It has to be a certain type of file.
Can I just jump in for a minute?
Sure.
Our best practice here is not to use that media recording option.
Oh, really?
Well, because if they create their videos and all using Kaltura, which they all have access to, then there's no additional file storage limitation. Mm-hmm. So instead of making it an online submission, I think if you go over there, there's an external tool. No, it's for the submission type. Mm. And so you use an external tool, and then it can't do it in groups. Okay, well, in any event. No, the actual, if you want them to create a video, then what you can do is you don't use the media recording, but you just make it like a text, online text, and then they can go in and they can embed the video in the text editor from Kaltura.
Yeah. Here.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
So if you've enabled My Media in your course, your students will also have the ability to do that in the course. And could I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Another piece, I don't know if you're going to mention it, is the ability to create video quizzes where you can actually add quizzes, embed quiz questions in any video that you create. And those can be added to your gradebook as well.
So yeah, if this is a question that I created, if you had media, you could add images or videos as part of quiz questions right here too. Or you could use a YouTube video and embed it with the HTML editor as well, which is a little bit.
Well, actually, what I was saying is that if you have a video, you can turn it into a video quiz, and you can embed the questions in the video.
Oh, in the
so
video.
It stops at a certain point in the video, and the students can answer a question before they move on. So it's just another option for assessing.
Got it.
The only the limitation to the video quiz right now is that it will only take multiple choice questions.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to put an essay question in the middle of the video. Kat wants to know that's through Kaltura. Sam?
Yes. Yes, it is. So the short of it is that when you do a video quiz, Kaltura makes a copy of your video, so you still have your original video, and it makes a video quiz out of a copy of the video. So, and then there's a special way to link to that so that it will appear for the students and appear in the gradebook.
Thank you, Sam. All right, so moving on, these are the readings and resources that are provided, and I'm sure Sam can email out this PowerPoint so you have access to these articles, but this is some of where I found information that was displayed in this presentation and some further reading if you're interested in doing so. And then with that, I wanted to let you know feel free to email me if you have any questions. That's my email. And I know Sam is always available, right, Sam? From CTL, and that's their location, phone number, and email. But I'd be happy to meet any of you one-on-one to discuss any of this information further. I know it's kind of like a snapshot overview. I like how you put always with exclamation point and then question marks. If you wanted to meet and further talk about or have me look at your course or discuss any of your assessment strategies in your course, I'd be happy to do so. If you email me, we can set up a time. With that, are there any questions that you have or anything else you wanted to discuss?
Well, Beth, can you go ahead and stop the sharing?
Sure.
And okay. So before we wrap up, again, if there are any more questions, we'll be happy to take them. And since we're coming up on the on midday, I want to offer everybody a virtual dessert before you have lunch. So while you're contemplating which one of those desserts that you want, if you want to let us know your selection in the chat, that would be great. And I will just take that opportunity while you're doing that to just highlight some of our upcoming webinars. So in a couple of days, on Thursday, we're having one on active learning in the STEM classroom. So if you teach in any of the STEM disciplines, you might want to check that one out. In October on the 19th, we're having a webinar on, as you can see, hints and tips for making your Canvas course more accessible. That will be led by one of my CTL colleagues, Carol Gordon. I don't know if you've ever called for help. You might have talked to her. And Khalil Eksher from the Office of Disability Services. And then later in October, we have yet another webinar on ebooks that will be led by a couple of people in the library. And this is not just ebooks for your students, but also how you might be able to use ebooks in your research and everything. So we're looking forward to seeing you at additional workshops, webinars, special events. So thanks for attending, and as I said, we'll be sending a link to this recording out at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So thanks again.